Hello and welcome to episode 4 of the Curbside Chat, the video podcast series where we're going to talk about the automotive aftermarket's critical topics with the people who make it happen. So today, AI Chairman Susan Hitchon is back to have another great conversation with an industry expert. Now, if this is your first time joining us today, well, I want to welcome you. Make sure to post your questions in the Q&A panel, and we'll do our best to get to all of them today. Now, before we begin, I would like to take this time to acknowledge that this holiday season is a bit different this year for sure. 2020 has been a challenging year, but to all of you in the automotive aftermarket, we want to say thank you. Thank you because you are essential. You have raised to the occasion to help our first responder, helping the people working at a grocery store to get to and from work safely. And you did this while also protecting your employees and your customers. So again, thank you. I'd like also to acknowledge all of our volunteers here at AIA, so on our board, divisions, and committees who gave countless hours in support of activities despite a very difficult year. So we wish you all a joyous holidays and Happy New Year. At last, I'd like to also recognize our sponsors. This event would not be possible without their generous support. So again, thank you very much, and let's get started. So good afternoon, Susan, and happy holidays.
Good afternoon. Happy holidays to you too, JF.
Thank you. Hey, what a great way to end the year with our guest today. So I'm going to turn it right over to you, and please introduce us to Canada's favorite car doctor.
Absolutely. And good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. And I hope that this event finds you, your families, and your colleagues safe and well. We have an excellent show for you today. And to end the 2020 calendar year, our industry expert today is Bill Gardiner. Bill Gardiner is a lifelong car guy and auto mechanic coming from a family of mechanics. Bill didn't have time to go far for guidance and mentoring. With 43 years of experience under his belt, Bill wrote the troubleshooter column in the Toronto Star from 1986 to 1997 and has appeared weekly on TSN's Motoring TV and motoringtv.com, all of its 32 years on TV. In addition to many other responsibilities, Bill is still an active business owner in Canada and the United States. You have quite a resume, Bill. I am sure there's more to it. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you for having me.
That's wonderful. Nice. So I'm so glad you joined us. Let's just jump into some of our questions for you.
Sure.
First off, Bill, can you describe your current role in the aftermarket?
So I'm still active turning wrenches 6-7 days a week, some weeks. So, this time of year with winter tire install, it's 7 days a week. And in the spring, taking them back off, it's 7 days a week doing that. It's usually 6 days a week for me, but I'm here at Motoring TV 1 day a week, shooting the show. As you mentioned now, 32 years. We're about to start actually our 33rd year very soon. I'm the media spokesperson for Cal Tire out of Vernon, BC, when they do a national media campaign. And I work occasionally for their mining tire division at some mines in Northern Ontario when they have specific issues or problems. But basically my business has evolved and changed over the years. I've cut it down quite a bit now. I did have employees at one time. I had a 5-bay shop at one time. I had apprentices. I had one fella that did his apprenticeship from day one to getting his license at my shop. That was probably the highlight of that whole operation. It was getting Renee through and getting his mechanic's license entirely at our shop. So that was great. So yeah, busy keeping relevant in the trade. I've had some great mentors in this trade over the years, and some great trainers. Sue, we mentioned off air a few days ago, I attended one of your seminars with Schrader Bridgeport when you were teaching tire pressure monitoring systems, but I've attended lots of other trainers in Canada that have done a really great job too. So, it's been a very positive experience.
Super. Thank you. You're certainly a ton of experience, and we value that very much. And I know that I watch your show all the time, and I see that you get a ton of emails from consumer drivers asking for questions, either tips or specific maintenance or repair kinds of questions. Is there any particular trend or trends that you see in the inquiries that you get from consumer drivers? What are they really concerned about?
Sue, the questions are all over the map, and a lot of times they're follow-up questions basically on what we've talked about in previous weeks. But there is sort of one area of questions that we get quite a bit, and that's concerning rust protection on vehicles. Because a lot of our viewers are enthusiasts and they want to keep their machinery, whatever that machinery is, they want to keep it for a long time. They want to keep it viable. They want to keep it safe. And from my standpoint, it's a great thing because, you know, if that 10 or 12-year-old vehicle, be it car, pickup truck, SUV, whatever it is, if it's still viable, you know, if it's not falling apart from rust, they're going to entertain thoughts of doing the head gasket, doing the timing chain, doing, you know, some major repairs. Whereas if, you know, if the vehicle was in a state of degradation because of corrosion, they probably wouldn't embark on those major jobs. So it's very important for my business, and it seems to be a common thread on a lot of our questions. And you know, there was a point there last year where we got a whole lot of questions about electronic rust control, and I said on the show that I wasn't sold on it, that I preferred, you know, things like Crown and Rust Check and those types of spray applications. And then we had follow-up email right away from experts in the electronic side who said, no, it can't work in an automotive environment. You know, the science doesn't support it. It can't work. It works apparently in, you know, wet applications, underwater applications and things like that. But we had a number of experts weigh in and say, no, it can't work. So it's kind of great that, you know, the fact that we do this show brings out some people that add to our information base.
That's fantastic. And, you know, speaking of trends, when it comes to vehicle maintenance, we've had a lot of concern, or it's been discussed and debated on many occasions through AIA and at our meetings and events about underperformed maintenance in Canada. And do you feel that vehicle owners are following the advice of their ASP, their automotive service provider, and getting the work done that's recommended by them, or are they putting work off for multiple reasons?
They're deferring, by and large, they're deferring, Sue. They really are. You know, if you have a really good rapport with your customer and you suggest some proactive maintenance, you know, they're game for it. Customers are game for it. I'm fortunate. I have a very small clientele and very connected with them. So if I suggest we do something, you know, on that particular vehicle, based on the number of months or years it's been on the road or number of kilometers it's accrued, they're good with that. But they're often coming to me for the second opinion because they're skeptical about another service provider, usually a dealership that has suggested this, that, or the other thing. So we, you know, usually our fallback position is consult the owner's manual, go to the severe service category, which is what most Canadian driving conditions dictate, and see if you've driven past, I call them the stop signs, you know, so the spark plug replacement stop sign is at 160,000 K in most vehicles. Well, you know, that is so far down the road that most people never think of doing it, you know, until the car is misfiring. So I actually had a car the other day, a Subaru car that had gone to a dealership, and the lady complained about the transmission chugging. So they got off on this transmission tangent, and eventually I swapped cars with her. She was so far away from my shop. We met halfway and traded cars for a few days, and driving home, misfire, you know, under load, coming to a grade in high gear, it would misfire violently. And it had the original spark plugs in it, and it was double the kilometers at which they should have been changed. So, you know, 4 spark plugs in a 2.5 horizontally opposed 4-cylinder engine, and it's fixed. Transmission chugging, non-existent.
Bill,
So-
this is Jeff. I'm curious, how can we in the aftermarket, I guess, be more persuasive to the consumer about the importance of doing that work, that maintenance? How can we make it so that they're a little bit more trusty, I guess, and do the work that they need to do in order to maintain their vehicle properly?
Yeah, so JF, what I find is if I have a regular customer, and most of my customers are regulars, and they bring along their friends, so it kind of snowballs. But in the early days of the customer acquiring whatever that vehicle might be, and it could have, maybe the last vehicle was a front wheel drive car, and now they've got an all wheel drive SUV. So at the early stages of their ownership, as soon as they change that vehicle, I try and have a one-on-one with them and a little tutorial on, okay, this is what you're up against with this car, and this is very different than your last one, and you need to be aware of this, this, and this. Don't be frightened or afraid or intimidated by it. These are the things, you now have a transfer case on this all-wheel drive vehicle that's got a liter or liter and a half of lubricant in it, and that's got to be changed periodically, and you've got to look underneath for fluid leaks when the vehicle's being serviced, and so I try and get them accustomed to what things they need to know about now and in the future, and what things they, if there's any maintenance differences from their previous vehicle, tell them up front. Don't wait until it's time to do it or the problem arises, and that really helps them. And now, when it comes time for those service intervals, now they're receptive to doing it. They had a little bit of time to think about it, look at that owner's manual, Google it, search it, whatever, and now they're cool with it.
Right. Be proactive. Got it.
Oh, for sure. It really works. And my customers jump around from brand of vehicle, type of vehicle, back and forth, and many of them have multiple vehicles. They'll have a four-wheel drive pickup, and they've got a luxury car that's a Sunday driver. They've got motorcycles, they've got all kinds of toys, stern drive boats and Sea-Doos, and they want the wheel bearings packed on the trailer that carries, you're all over the map on doing stuff. So you've got to be ready to do all that, and you don't want your customer going somewhere else for service, because they may go to that somewhere else for everything else too. So you've got to be able to do it all.
And Bill, that's a really great story. I love that you have an education interview, so to speak, with your clients when they first come to you with a new vehicle. That's an excellent tip. And we know that in your opinion, a lot of consumers, of course, consumer drivers, of course, they're looking for quality service, quality work to be done on their car. That's a given. But what would you say is the top on your customers' priority list when they engage in ASP?
Well, you're absolutely right, Susan. Quality is first and foremost, but price is a huge factor. And that's where we in the aftermarket have an inherent advantage, because there are so many vehicles now where original equipment parts from the vehicle manufacturer and their dealership network, it's cost prohibitive to fix the car. As much as you might like to use genuine parts, and there are cases where there are certain things that I absolutely target that I want as genuine parts. I was doing Conrod bearings on a 1ZZ FE Toyota engine, and I'll go to the dealer. I want the genuine bearings because they're selectively fitted. It's kind of a long story, but anyhow, if you've ever done bottom end bearings on an engine, you'll understand. On that particular application, that's what I want to target. But when I look at all the parts that I would have to, I have a Toyota car, an old one with a gazillion kilometers on it. If I had to fix that thing with genuine parts, as much as I might like to, it would be absolutely cost prohibitive to do it. So without the aftermarket parts, you just wouldn't be fixing it.
And you alluded to it earlier when you're talking about customer coming to you with a brand new vehicle and having an interview with them. In addition to, of course, the quality and the price, then there's the relationship aspect that you have with your customers.
Yeah, I've been really, really lucky, Sue, that my very first shop, and we used to shoot the show there every week, I was in the back of an industrial building. You couldn't see me if you tried. And in the early days, a number of people said, you're going to lose your shirt here. Nobody will find you here. But, you know, I had this great clientele, and they were always bringing their friends and their relatives and their neighbors and their coworkers. So it just snowballed. So it's really great. You know, so it just goes to show you that, you know, if you've got a good customer base and you look after them, they'll bring more work than you'll ever be able to handle.
Absolutely.
Bill, I want to see your perspective as to you think or not that, in fact, the new vehicles are made better or not. They're for sure rust less than before, but are they really built better? And what's your predictions in terms of how frequently we're going to require maintenance and repair on these new vehicles, you know, 2020 and beyond?
Yeah, so JF, overall, yes, they're way better. However, you can find all kinds of examples where it's exactly the opposite of that, where they've taken something they did well for decades and screwed it up. And oh yeah, and you know, we're not always, you know, you'll get asked 10 different mechanics or 10 different shop owners, and you might get 10 different answers on why the OEs manufacturers went this route on whatever your pet peeve is or your Achilles heel that you've now found is. It's sometimes cost, it could be fuel economy, whatever, but every once in a while there's something that they've done that's actually counterproductive or a step backwards. But if we look at the car overall, you know, tremendously improved. And you look at some of the areas of the car that we used to service, you know, back in the 80s and 90s, we put radiators in cars like crazy. We record radiators. Nobody records a rad anymore in a, you know, a light duty automotive application. You buy a new one from Spectre Premium, right? So, you know, it has changed a lot, and by and large, much better, big improvements. But like I said, every once in a while, there's that curveball. There's that one item that they just threw out in left field, and you go, what the heck, you know, like, but you know, that's how we make our money, fixing those problems, right? So we probably shouldn't complain too much.
Yeah.
That's excellent. Love the stories. I could talk to you all day, Bill. Just such great information coming from you. You know, 2020 was a really interesting year, and I'd have to say that the word pivot was probably the #1 used word for all business owners, small and large. What would you say is the key to future success for ASPs?
I think a lot of guys are going to have to embrace working more hours and more days of the week than they have before. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, this time of year, I'm working 7 days a week. And I don't think I would lose customers if I wasn't doing that, but I'm not sure if I could handle everything that they all need if I didn't do that. So it's kind of, you know, I feel like I don't have much choice but to do that. And it's, you know, you can do it for a short period of time in the fall and again in the spring. And it's mostly centered around tire changeover season. As you know, JF could tell you, you know, in Quebec, obviously mandatory use of winter tires. We've got over 50% uptake by Canadian consumers in the rest of the country, depending on whose numbers you believe, but it's north of 50% on the uptake of winter tires. So, you know, you've got this huge amount of customers that subscribe to the two sets of tire theory. And so you've potentially got their vehicle in the shop twice a year on the hoist or lifted up with the wheels off, doing that servicing. And then you've got everything that comes out of that as well. And, you know, a quick look at the brakes, a quick look at the suspension, a quick look at the tires that just came off in terms of erratic wear, uneven wear, excessive wear, under inflation, whatever. Is there anything we need to pick up on now at this point? So it's absolutely the best springboard there is. But, you know, I think shop owners need to look at, you know, maybe you need to work all day Saturday now instead of half a day. And there's all kinds of shops that you may be competing against that will work 6 days, and there's a number of them that will work 7. There are there are vehicle dealerships in the GTA that are open on Sunday for service, not complete service, but they'll do an oil change, they'll do filters, they'll do tire changes and rotations and alignment. They'll do light duty servicing 7 days a week. So, I think we're going to have to expand the number of hours that we work to satisfy some people, because, once somebody's doing it, if you don't follow suit, you're going to lose some of your customers to that competitor.
That's a really interesting perspective. And I did hear you in that answer also talk about how important inspections are. And I guess that goes back to our previous questions about developing that relationship with your customers and doing the inspection, making the recommendations for work to be done and keeping that top of mind for them. That is probably a good future success key for ASPs, to make sure that they're doing the inspections and making the recommendations on a regular cadence.
Yes, for sure, Sue. It's awkward sometimes doing. I get a lot of customers when they're acquiring a used vehicle that want you, and all mechanics get this, right? All shops get this, to weigh in or look at that car that they're thinking of buying, to make sure that it's a good car. And it's a really difficult tightrope to walk. You've got the seller on one hand, you got the buyer on the other hand, you're the monkey in the middle. And, you can't really disassemble that car because it still belongs to the other guy. And the new guy expects you to look it over and essentially give him, the stamp of approval. And if it goes wrong, it's going to be on you.
Right.
It's a tough business to, you have to do it for your regular customer. If you say no, everybody in the media that tells you, hey, if you're looking at a used vehicle, make sure you get it checked out by your guy, right? So you got to do it.
I know where to send my daughter next time she goes to buy a used vehicle then.
I get pretty involved in it sometimes, and rarely does it blow up in my face, but I'm here to tell you, I've had it blow up in my face in a big way over the years. It has happened.
Still continuing on the future success for ASPs with the newer vehicles, with ADAS and all the new technologies coming out, new tools require diagnostic tools, etc. What do you see as the biggest or greatest opportunity for an ASP? Is it perhaps getting into reflash, a dedicated bay for reflash, or what would you think is the next big thing for a shop?
Yeah, I'm farming that out in most cases. I'm lucky that I've got some great working relationships with guys at dealerships to do a lot of that. But yeah, that may be something in the future, and it may be where I wouldn't be surprised too if shops network with each other. In fact, I know of some guys in the west end of Toronto that actually do that. One guy's set up to do one brand, and he's got maybe specialty tools and equipment for that brand because he's got a lot of clientele driving that brand. And the other guy happens to have a whole bunch, in a different brand, and they network. So I know a number of guys that are doing that, and I think that's probably, in this trade, you want to make sure that you're very respectful of all your peers, and you work with all your peers. A friend of mine has a saying. He says, you can step on the rungs hard on the ladder on the way up, but don't break them, because you got to come back down. Don't burn those bridges, etc. So, as big as this trade is, it's also pretty small in some respects too. And you end up, working with other mechanics, and you lose track of them, and all of a sudden they appear somewhere else. And so it's important that we network and work with each other, and I think that's going to be a strength. But certainly, Sue, I think that wheel and tire service, winter tires and wheels that people are seeking out. Still we have almost all the vehicles that are sold new come with tires that are inappropriate for winter use in Canada. Mm-hmm. So, the customers just shelled out a whole bunch of money for that new vehicle, be it car, SUV, pickup, whatever. And within the first year of operation, probably needs to spend quite a bit of money on wheels and tires for the wintertime if they want to have it to be a really safe vehicle for the winter. So, you've got to be able to do that. And that springboards you to what we talked about a few minutes ago, having the vehicle in the shop twice a year to switch those wheels over, and all the service and repairs that come out of that.
And, I really heard you say shared resources amongst your peers. And I like that you said peers instead of competitors, and that you use that as a network for the different services that you offer to your customers.
Yeah, I kind of learned that from John Cochran at Cochran Auto Electric in the West End of Toronto. John, I used to buy a lot of parts from his business. He was an AC Delco dealer. We bought a lot of parts from Cochran Auto Electric. Now it's called Cochran Automotive, but John did a lot of training in the field as well. He did a lot of AC Delco training programs. And John, I couldn't believe when I first met him how receptive he was to share information with his peers, with other mechanics. Mm-hmm. And some of the things that he shared with me, I never would have shared with anybody else at that stage of the game. And it was like a real eye opener, And so it got me into doing it, because sooner or later you've got to pass on your skill set, your knowledge, your little tricks and that to somebody else, because you can't be all things to all people forever. And you get apprentices, and we had co-op students, and that was a great experience too. One of our co-op students is a licensed tech at a Chrysler dealership now. I'm still in touch with him on a regular basis. So but I learned a lot of these things from John Cochran. The fact that he was so sharing of information, and I don't know if it was primarily because we bought parts from him. I think he shared with everybody, but he opened my eyes to the fact that you've got to network with other guys a lot.
Well, that's fantastic. And before I take up all of your time, Bill, we are going to go to the audience and see if we have any questions.
Well, thank you very much, Bill. And yes, please keep the questions coming. So we have received questions via Slido. Earlier, you made a comment about the relationship between the car owner and the aftermarket versus dealership, and that obviously we're the preferred place for people, consumers, to come to service their cars. And here we have a question from Mark that says, yeah, but the younger car buyers still wants to have their service done at the dealership. Do you think this is going to change?
I don't really know if that's going to change or not. I encourage my customers to look at the dealership for some things. I'll give you an example, Jeff. The dealerships vigorously compete with the fast oil change guys. So, there's a target price that is kind of set by the major players, and the dealerships know, the car dealers know that in their drive-through quick lube bay, they have to compete with that price or they're going to lose business to those people, right? So, but the advantage of the dealer is that maybe you get a genuine oil filter instead of, the house brand oil filter that you might get somewhere else. So, it's actually pretty good value for the consumer. The only thing is the consumer has to resist the upsells, and of course, these kinds of services are often used as the upsell point for other work. So if that work is legitimately needed and required on that vehicle, be it because of the months or years of use or the kilometers it's accrued or some problems it has, then great, I'm all for it. But it's certainly something we got to look at.
Thank you. Another question here from Alec, and you just talked about lubricant. What lubricants do you recommend, and what do you think about the future of lubricants in vehicles?
So lubricants have really come along over the years. The majority of vehicles now are looking for synthetic lubricants, and manufacturers have been able to get much greater life and performance out of engines. So as engines evolve, lubricants had to get better with them. So, we're using synthetic lubricants in almost all engines now, unless they're very older cars, but, certainly anything current, we're using synthetic lubricants, premium filters, and driveline lubricants. They went synthetic for a number of reasons. a big part of it was fuel economy for lower drag and low temperatures. You look at what the OE manufacturers are doing now. If you've looked at the new Ram pickups, they actually route coolant to the rear differential to warm up the lubricant in the rear diff to lower drag in low temperatures. So it just gives you an idea of the extent that the OEMs are going to make these vehicles perform at the level they need them to perform at in terms of fuel economy, longevity, etc. So synthetic lubricants, absolutely at the forefront. And there's a number of really good brands. And lubricants have to, with ILSAC and SAE, there's so many organizations that oversee the performance criteria of lubricants that the quality level is incredible for the consumer. The level of quality is really, really something.
Great. Thank you, Bill. So for our people in the audience, please keep the questions coming. And we'll get to Bill to answer them even after the show. So as Susan, I think we have a few minutes left. So how about we jump into the rapid fire questions?
Sure. To finish up, Bill, we have some really exciting rapid fire questions for you. We'll throw them at you, whatever comes to mind first, and we have 2 minutes to complete these. The first one is, what was the make and model of your first car?
It was a 71 Chevelle with a 307 engine that was blown, and I bought it from a customer and pulled the engine out the second day I owned it.
Do you wish you still had it?
No.
No. Okay.
No.
What is your favorite thing about working in the auto industry?
The fact that it has allowed me to own vehicles that I wouldn't have otherwise owned because I bought them cheap when they were screwed up, and I fixed them with parts that I bought at trade price, at wholesale price, and my own time, which I didn't have to pay someone else for. So it allowed me to own vehicles that I wouldn't otherwise have been able to own.
Great answer. Who would you want to play you in a movie of your life?
Oh. I don't know. No idea. I've never thought of that.
Let's say Brad Pitt.
No.
No?
Somebody who's still alive? Oh, who would it be? Is just said Brad Diamond. Brad and I have an ongoing joke here at Motoring. He always tells everybody that he writes my scripts and that I have to consult him. And
So use him then.
when it comes to turning wrenches, he's not your guy. But we have a friendly back and forth about his lack of talent fixing things mechanically. We'll just leave it at that.
What advice would you tell your 18-year-old self?
Oh boy. Yeah, if I could go back to being 18, well, it would have been invest in real estate earlier than I invested in automobiles.
Good.
Eventually the penny dropped, and I figured out that, everything that had a key to it and had tires went down like this in value right from day one. And if I bought real estate early, it would have been a whole different picture, but I don't regret it.
Very good.
Yeah.
What are you terrible at but love to do anyways?
Cook. I like making my bacon, cheese, and tomato sandwich, but beyond that, I'm brutal in the kitchen. I just, I burn everything, or I can't coordinate timing of cooking anything. It's other than spaghetti, that's about the only thing I can do without ruining it.
And our last one, who do you admire most?
Well, Sue, I've had a lot of great mentors in this business, and some of my mentors were customers. I quit a job one time, Sue. I walked away from a garage that I worked at. I loaded up my tools. I clashed with the new owners, and I quit that job. And at that point in my life, I'd never quit any job. I wasn't a quitter. Quit that job, loaded up my tools, went home. I was making, I'll never forget, I was making an instant coffee in the kitchen. It was summertime. I go back outside to unload my tools out of my pickup truck, and there's longtime customer Bill King. Bill was a retired Canadian Forces guy, military guy, and he paced up and down while he talked to you, right? And he had a Ford rear-wheel drive car with a V8. I'll never forget it. And it had dropped a valve, and it was, you know, the head of the valve was buried in the piston, and he drove it to my house. Everybody knew where I lived, right? He says, I went to the shop and they told me you'd quit. He shows up at my house. He says, I'm not going there. He said, where are you going to be working? And I said, well, Bill, I don't know. I just quit this job a couple hours ago. And I looked at his car and I told him the engine was going to have to come out. And I'll never forget this, Sue. I said to him, I said, well, I don't have any shop tools. I don't have an engine crane. I have my hand tools, but I can't do an engine job. You know, I don't have shop equipment. And he said to me, he said, I'll be here tomorrow with my checkbook. Have your list ready. I'll be here tomorrow with my checkbook. This is where you start working for you. And that was, and you know, that was it. That was the last time I ever worked for anybody else.
Oh, that's a fantastic story, Bill. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you sharing that with us.
I'll never forget that guy. He's passed away now, but I'm still in touch with his son. His son lives in London, Ontario, and I've told his son that story. And he, you know, when I twig him on it, he remembers his dad. You know, he remembers the situation, remembers the car and the event and that. And I said, hey, your dad told me. He said, tomorrow morning I'll be here with the checkbook. Have your list ready.
That's fantastic. And it's sad that we're coming to an end of our conversation. And that's all the questions we have for you, Bill. But before we sign off, I do want to express a big thank you to all of our AIA members for your continued support, and particularly in a wild and crazy year. And I don't mean that in a Steve Martin, Dan Aykroyd kind of way. If any of you following that kind of reference, you're as old as I am. As 2020 comes to an end, I want to express on behalf of the board of directors, I hope everyone watching today and participating in our automotive aftermarket industry with the passion that you have, I wish you all a wonderful and safe holiday season with your families. And I hope you get some time off to enjoy some private time. And thank you again for joining us today, Bill. It's you're a big inspiration to everyone, and we've really enjoyed connecting with you and hearing some of your stories and your insights into the auto industry. Thank you for joining us.
Well, I appreciate the invite, Sue. Anytime. Thank you.
And we'll all see you next time on the next Curbside.